Hey guys, we are back and we are in the last portion of the terror section, and we are talking about dissociation, numbing, or constriction. At the moment of the traumatic event, when one experiences a state of helplessness or powerlessness, when physical escape is not possible, the person escapes from the terror by an altered state of consciousness called dissociation. When fight or flight are not options, then freeze is all that is left. This altered state of consciousness is similar to hypnotic trance and restores a state of calm to the person. Young children will often sit memorized in front of the television, oblivious to anything that is happening around them. They are putting themselves into the drama happening on the screen in order to escape for a little while their own pain. Sometimes this escape is noticed as a kind of daydreaming, something about which many teachers complain. As they get older, more sophisticated forms of avoidance are employed. Trauma victims start organizing their lives to avoid having unwanted emotions. By use of alcohol, drugs, or food, or by promiscuity or porn. An example of how this works with adults is the case of prostitutes who learn to disassociate as incest victims and who can subsequently feel untouched by their johns. They simply escape from their bodies and watch the events in the room as if they are happening to someone else. Perceptions are distorted, they are numb, or even physical pain can be oh my god, I cannot say this word. They can be numbed in the loss of sensation. Men have told me that they are sure that prostitutes really enjoy what they are doing. They might want to remember that they were paid to give that impression. Some types of disassociation are spontaneous and result in, quote, surrender of voluntary action, suspension of initiative, and critical judgment, subjective detachment, or calm, enhanced perception of imagery, altered sensation, including numbness and analgesia, I can't read that word, and distortion of reality, including depersonalization, derealization, and change in the sense of time, according to Judith Herman. It is thought that these spontaneous and uncontrolled trance states may trigger the release of chemicals within the central nervous system, such as opiates, which diminish the distress caused by pain without eliminating the sensation of pain. When she cannot seem to dissociate spontaneously, the trauma victim often turns to alcohol or narcotics in an attempt to avoid the pain of loss. In my research, although I haven't attempted to gather statistics, it seems to me that there is an inordinate number of birth mothers and adoptees who have been addicted to either drugs or alcohol. All right, pausing there. So the statistics are for adoptees that we are 4 times more likely to turn to drug and alcohol abuse. So there is definitely something about that. I don't know about birth mothers, but I will definitely find that and create a short on that. All right, continuing on. Whereas many incest victims resort to cutting themselves in an attempt to externalize internal pain. Victims of separation trauma may abuse their bodies with narcotics and alcohol. While it may be argued that they are not really helping themselves by behaving in this manner, they will retort that at the time anything is better than experiencing the pain. This behavior is often isolating that causes many adoptees to become withdrawn. Trauma victims may become, quote, more and more sensitized to environmental stimuli that remind them of the trauma, and less responsive to various stimuli which are necessary for involvement in the present, according to Van der Kolk, 1996. It is often difficult to integrate present experiences as foils to the beliefs created by the original trauma. Joseph Ledoux, in his book The Emotional Brain, suggests that trauma somehow, quotes, biases the brain in such a way that the thalamic pathways to the amygdala, it's the feeling part of the brain, predominates over the cortical, which is the thinking part, allowing these low-level processing networks to take the lead in the learning and storage information, unquote. Not only that, but he also says, quote, it is possible for emotions to be triggered in us without the cortex knowing exactly what is going on, unquote, by Ledoux in his 1996 book. This is what many adoptees have complained about. They feel hurt, sad, or angry, but they have no idea where these feelings are coming from. They often overreact to certain stimuli without knowing why. This is puzzling and sometimes frightening to them and to those who are close to them. John Ratey, author of The User's Guide to the Brain, says, quote, we automatically and unconsciously fit our sensations into categories that we have learned, often distorting them in the process, unquote, and that book was published in 2001. This is one reason that becoming conscious is so important. Distorted assumptions are made about the origin of the sensations, which have little to do with the present situation. Even if, and it is a very big if, the more intrusive symptoms subside, the sense of helplessness continues to plague the adoptee. This is often seen by outsiders as a lack of motivation, laziness, passivity, or apathy. As these symptoms begin to predominate, there is more and more sensation that a long time ago the baby's soul died. Some adoptees call themselves the, quote, walking aborted, unquote. So basically like zombies. This is a dreadful image, but one which nevertheless is vivid for some adoptees. Many of them feel more dead than alive. And some even try to consecratize this sensation by attempting suicide. Again, we are 4.7 times more likely to unalive ourselves. So let's be clear about that. According to communications I have had from thousands of adoptees, suicidal ideation is common among adolescent adoptees. Terror in the forms of hypervigilance, intrusion, and dissociation is tremendously debilitating. When the numbing of feelings occurs, it can even lead to psychosomatic symptoms. It can also lead to a kind of apathy which preludes getting any therapeutic help. Since the inability to imagine a future for oneself kills the capacity to look for new solutions, and that is from van der Kolk's 1996 book. Numbing produces a, quote, what's the use, unquote, mentality which must be overcome to even begin the healing process. However, Ratty reassures us when he says, and this is his quote, the brain is amazingly plastic. Rewiring is possible throughout life, unquote. He warns against repeating the same activities that brought us grief in the first place. Quote, to change the wiring in one skill, you must engage in some activity that is unfamiliar, novel to you, but related to that skill, because simply repeating the same activity only maintains already established connections, unquote, in Ratty's 2001 book. Besides consciously responding differently to everyday situations, creative activities such as learning to paint, sculpt, write poetry, or play musical instrument can redirect our neurons to help form new patterns in the brain. All right, so pausing there. Basically what is being said is that according to Ratty's book, where is it? The User's Guide to the Brain, that we have to kind of avoid those triggers as much as possible while creating activities that are similar to without engaging in that, so that our neurons are firing differently. So basically we're rewiring our brain through different activities, right? So the same could be said if I'm trying to do this in such a way that would help. Say you had an accident, right? Say you broke your foot and you couldn't walk, or maybe you broke both feet, and you have to relearn to walk, right? It's kind of the same idea. You have to relearn the skill, but maybe you have to do it in such a way that you have to adapt, right? So it's kind of like that. One of those things. You kind of have to adapt to the skill, but you're still using something you've already learned to do. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, I will see you guys next time for the disconnection, which is the next part of chapter 1.